You are live.
We're going to call the meeting for Akron City Council to order. Clerk will read the roll.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville,
Aye.
Swirsky. All members are present except for Swirsky.
At this time, we will be led in prayer by Pastor Lori Porter from Love Akron. Immediately following our prayer, we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance. Going to ask if Councilman Malik would do that for us.
Sure.
Thank you. Father, tonight we just, first of all, want to say thank you for the opportunity to live in a city where there are such great, rich resources made available to us through not just services, but through folks like these that serve on our council. So I uplift them today. I pray for our mayor, for city council, for our county commissioners, for police chiefs, judges, and all those who serve in our local community. Pray that you would strengthen them with wisdom and grace as they continue to carry the heavy burden that they do in leading our city. May you help them to manage their teams and their projects with love, with patience, and with much grace. Keep your eyes on them, lead them and guide them, be with them in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes from our previously held meeting have been provided. Are there any additions or corrections?
Motion
Councilman
to approve.
Fusco, thank you. A motion to approve. Can we get a second? Councilwoman Baylor?
Second.
Roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
The minutes pass 12-0.
Before you, you have the consent agenda. Motion to approve. Councilman Fusco?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion. Can we get a second by Councilman Lombardo?
Second.
Roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
The consent agenda passes 12-0.
We do have two public hearings scheduled for this evening. Clerk will read in item number 1.
Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, March 8th, 2021, during the council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a two-family use of a dwelling at 119 South Maple Street.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of council. Chris Vanucci, doing business as R&M Baker Real Estate Investments, is requesting permission to establish a two-family residence at this address. Although this property is in UPD 40B, which is in an area that permits apartment uses, the zoning code requires a property to have a minimum area of 7,000 square feet in order to be developed with a two-family residence. Because the subject property has an area of less than that of 6,160 square feet, conditional use approval is required. The property is currently developed with a single-family house containing 1,600 square feet of living space on 2 floors. The Century home was damaged in a fire in 2018 and has remained vacant since. In October 2020, the City Housing Appeals Board reviewed the records of the property and ordered the structure to be raised. The property owner has appealed that order and the litigation remains pending. The Housing Division issued a list of repairs necessary to comply with the Environmental Health Housing Code, and the petitioner would like to convert the dwelling to a two-family residence as part of the repair process. The current enclosed front porch would be removed and replaced with a new porch. The entire structure would be clad in new vinyl 4-inch lap siding. The roof would receive new asphalt shingles of a complementary color. Proposed second dwelling unit would contribute to the desired increased density in this neighborhood. The planning staff is of the opinion that sufficient open space is available on this and adjacent lots. Aside from the substandard lot size, the development would meet all of their zoning code requirements and would raise the density of the area closer to what is recommended in the land use and development guide plan. The renovation of this property would help stabilize and rejuvenate this neighborhood and encourage further private investment. Both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend approval subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Antonucci. Is the petitioner Ryan Baker online with us this evening?
Yes, I am. I am here.
Okay, Ryan. Before you bring forth your remarks, I'm just going to ask that you be sworn in by a member of our law department.
Okay.
Okay, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Baker, you can proceed.
Okay. I mean, basically, Mike went over everything that we would like, Mr. Antonucci, that we would like to do. We feel that this is the highest and best use for the property for us, putting our investment in there. This gives us the best rate of return. It also gives us the ability to rejuvenate the house and, recoup what we're going to have, the amount of money it's going to take to bring the property back around instead of have it tore down and have an empty lot within the city of Akron, which is, we feel, is not as good as us being able to bring this property back to life and making it beautiful for the neighborhood. We already currently work within that neighborhood. We own, somewhere around 20 to 30 properties within there. You guys have pictures of our work that we've done. You guys can see all of that. We basically make these houses a lot better and bring them up to code so that we have no issues, and we make them, compliant for Section 8 vouchers and everything else that can be done within the neighborhood also.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Is Catherine Simmons online with us?
Yes.
Catherine Simmons. Okay, Catherine Simmons scheduled to speak against 119 South Maple Street. So Catherine, be so kind if we can just have you to be sworn in by a member of our law department.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Simmons, you can proceed.
Hello, so I live in the neighborhood. I'm also the treasurer for the West Hill board. So we're really cognizant of what's going on in the neighborhood. One of our biggest worries is parking and traffic as well. So that intersection is already pretty dangerous. I've seen quite a few terrible car crashes right there. And the amount of the neighborhood, just having another driveway there and having a lot more traffic would be detrimental. We've also seen a lot of their properties and how they've not really kept them up to par. So I feel like it's more of about money rather than rejuvenating the neighborhood and having the neighborhood in the forefront of their mind and taking care of the tenants. So that's pretty much what the board and the neighbors are a little bit concerned with, is parking, traffic, and then upkeep of properties, because they do own other ones that have boarded up windows. We've also had issues with a lot of their tenants. We've had to call the police multiple times on them. I don't think they do the screening process they stated they do. So we've had issues with a lot of their tenants so far, and we haven't lived there that long.
Can I address that issue, please, if that's okay?
Sure.
So Baker? With the tenants, police being called, I know everyone knows with COVID, they're under restrictions that we cannot evict. We know that the police have been called, and we've tried to basically go through the process of the eviction, but we cannot because Summit County does not let us do that. So that's the reason that some of these tenants have stayed in place. We do have a tenuous screening process. I can send that over to the council if that's what they want. We do credit checks, background checks, 3 times verification of income. And we have not been able to evict people in certain certain houses because of the COVID restrictions on evictions right now. So we are not allowed to remove them. And with the condition of the driveway, we already spoke with Chris. Are you there? I think his name was Jason. I believe, was it Jason that we spoke with?
I'm just gonna ask you, Mr. Baker, to speak to me as the president. Okay.
Okay. Sorry. Well, Chris is my partner. That's what Chris is my business partner. That's why I'm saying, because I want to make sure I get the name correct, because he is on the West Hill board. And he said that we told him about the parking, that we tore down the driveway and we would make it big enough so that both cars can park within the driveway and not take up spots on the street or anything of that nature.
Okay.
So we are addressing that issue too.
Okay, well, Mr. Baker, thank you so much. And Ms. Simmons, if you have any further questions, I'll have you just to work through and have those questions answered through the chair of planning, which is Councilman Fusco, okay? So at this time, we will close our public hearing. Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to pull the committee to refer this item. Kamer,
Aye.
Baylor,
Aye.
and Samples.
Aye.
Yes, thank you. I was also in communication to let everybody on council know, excuse me, with Mr. Swirsky, and he respectfully requests that we take time on this as well. So we're going to take time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Notice is hereby given that the following public hearing will be held by the Council of the City of Akron on Monday, March 8th, 2021, during the council meeting at 7 p.m. Ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a Type A daycare at 1247 Florida Avenue.
Mr. Antonucci?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of council. Jasmine Hunt is requesting permission to establish a Type A child daycare home at this location. The proposed Type A daycare home would be located on the first floor and basement of the two-story home. The facility would provide services and activities for up to 12 children between the ages of 6 weeks to 12 years old. It would be operated between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 11:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., Saturday and Sunday. Providing care for up to 12 children under the age of 12 should not have a detrimental effect on nearby homes. Providing quality daycare service is beneficial to the entire city. Planning staff and planning commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Antonucci. Jasmine Hunt, are you online with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, wonderful. So Jasmine, before you bring forth your remarks, just going to ask that you be sworn in by a member of our law department.
Okay.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Jasmine, you can proceed.
Hello. The daycare at 1247 Florida. Oh, my name's Jasmine Hunt, 1247 Florida Avenue, Akron, Ohio, 44314. I am requesting the approval for a Type A home daycare that will be primarily for special needs children, but we still accept children without special needs. The daycare will be in the basement and first floor in my living room and dining room. And then it will also be a library on the second floor, second floor. I'm trying to think what else was I going to say. I think that was all.
Okay. Well, Ms. Hunt, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Councilman Fusco?
Yes, I would like to inquire to Council Representative Freeman. I know he had a question this afternoon. I was wondering if he had gotten it answered, if he's okay with us proceeding with this, or?
Yes, Mr. Antonucci had indicated that there had not been any concern from any neighbors. And he said there was one phone call came in, and Mr. Antonucci said, he would try to track that. I said it was not necessary because I think the neighbor received a satisfactory response, and I just wish the petitioner all the luck in the world.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Freeman. With that, I'd like to pull the committee for a favorable report with suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Yes, thank you. Samples?
Aye.
Baylor,
Aye.
and Kamer.
Aye.
Yes, thank you. The request of the committee is for suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Okay, the rules have been suspended.
Yes,
Councilman
thank you.
Fusco, anything further?
Yeah, just that we had, I know we shared with the petitioner the 5 conditions that is asked for from the planning department. And I know Council Representative Freeman's in favor, so we're recommending approval this evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. Roll call.
Aye. Did you hear me? Something's going on.
Yeah, hold one second, because we can't hear Sarah.
Baylor,
Aye.
No, I can't.
okay, sorry about that. Baylor,
I can't hear you.
Aye.
Just one more second. I'm sorry. She's on a
Baylor.
delay for some reason.
okay. Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0.
Thank you so much. Councilman Fusco, what is your pleasure on the rest of the agenda?
Thanks, President Somerville. Time on 3 and 4. The committee requests that we file 5 and 6. We had just voted on 5 just now on the Florida Avenue address, and 6 is the petition for the Akron Beacon Journal historic designation. So we request that we file those 2, and then time on the balance of the agenda. Thank you.
Time will be granted. At this time, we will now move into our old business. Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
Continue to take time, please.
Time will be granted. Public Safety, Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Madam President. Number 1, we're going to continue taking time. Number 2, the committee's report is favorable and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
Thank you, Madam President. Before we vote, I was wondering if our Deputy Clerk of Council could read in the resolution for record.
Yes.
Sure. Resolution urging the Ohio General Assembly to adopt legislation prohibiting the use of the death penalty in the state of Ohio and declaring an emergency.
Well, thank you.
Would the sponsor, Councilwoman Samples, like to speak on this issue?
Just reiterating when I spoke earlier during committee that this resolution is in support of the Ohio General Assembly's bipartisan piece of legislation that will go before Governor DeWine, hopefully for signature. And also want to add that in speaking to the representatives this afternoon, just want to state for the record that both representatives have sent up that they've been working on in the Ohio legislature for years now. And we have supported those initiatives and those efforts with legislation or with a resolution in support of efforts that will affect us statewide. So it's a common practice. It's something that we've been doing for years, not just carrying water for them. I was a little offended by those comments for them because they work hard for the city of Akron, as do we. And I just thought it was a slap in their face because they are working hard to pass legislation that will affect all of Ohio, not just us here at home. And with that being said, this is one of those issues that we as a legislative body need to take up and not pass on to our voters. This is what we were elected to do, to take on those hard pieces that come before us. And I ask for passage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Samples. Are there any other comments at this time? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been, Councilman Neal, I see your hand.
Yes, ma'am. I know we've had much debate this afternoon regarding this piece and the other piece. And as I stated, I know on council, we've talked a lot about equity. I want us to remember the reason why we're having this discussion is because of what we now know to be structural and institutional racism. And that permeates through our judicial system and our corrections system. I appreciate my colleague, Councilwoman Samples, bringing this in. I appreciate the stance that Governor DeWine has taken. Understanding, folks, that we can't leave, if one life is lost, if one more life is lost because of someone being unjustly tried and incarcerated, we could save that life with this. And numerous times, there's documentation of that being the case. Again, I share with you, it wasn't a life sentence, but a gentleman was charged with a serious crime of rape. When those that sentenced him had the woman's diary that later exonerated him. So I'm hoping we cannot have this conversation about equity and then not understand the reason why we're having this conversation is because this nation has now openly discussing the structural and institutional biases that have led to this inequity, the structural and institutional policies and practices that are solely based on racism. And so I just want to urge our council to, I respect my colleagues having a different opinion, but passing this right now could save a life. And then we can put it, if you want to take that charge to put forth the other piece, you could put it forth for the voters. Although I feel the proper way to do that is through the Ohio Municipal League. But with that being said, Madam Chair, we can't have this discussion like we understand what equity is and then stay totally disconnected from the reason why we're having this discussion, which is structural and institutional racism that leads to the unjust incarceration and execution of people of color.
Thank you so much, Councilman Neal. Councilwoman Amobian?
I am in support of this mainly because I have read and have heard and have seen the unfairness of the death penalty being applied, and that it is something that I'm totally against, because it's been shown many times that most of the folks that are on death row have not gotten proper legal representation, and many of them probably are not guilty of the crime. And if they are, I would like to see a life imprisonment versus a death penalty. So anything that will remove the death penalty, I'm in favor of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Amobian. Are there any other comments from any other council members at this time? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. Roll call.
Baylor,
Nay.
Connor,
Nay.
Freeman,
Nay.
Fusco,
Nay.
Kamer,
Nay.
Lombardo,
Nay.
McKittrick,
Nay.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville.
Nay.
The motion does not pass. There were 4 ayes and 8 nays.
Councilman Kamer,
Thank you, Madam President. Number 3, we're going to continue time, please.
time will be granted. That concludes our old legislation. We'll now move into new legislation. Budget and Finance.
Item number 1, offered by Freeman, ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to enter into an agreement or agreements with AT&T Corp. For the provision of wireless services and equipment for a 3-year term and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Freeman?
Yes, I believe we asked to place this on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're
Consent.
welcome. This item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Item number 2, offered by Fusco, ordinance amending and or supplementing Title 11, Chapter 111, regulations governing specific businesses by adding new Article 12A, third-party food delivery services, and capping commissions chargeable by third-party food delivery service businesses during states of public health emergencies and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. The report of the committee is to refer this item, and we will, just for everyone's edification, we will be asking for a vote hopefully next week. So if there's any questions or concerns, please bring them forward. Thank you.
Thank you. This item will be referred.
Item number 3, offered by Samples, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement or agreements and or legislation with the Ohio Director of Transportation for certain improvements in the city of Akron identified by the state of Ohio's statewide safety project and declaring an emergency.
Councilwoman Samples?
Thank you, Madam President. The committee's report is favorable and we're asking for suspension of the rules.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended.
This is something that's come before us before. This is the last part of it. I'm pretty certain. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Little. This is no cost to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The rules have been suspended and the committee's report is favorable. Roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Aye.
Somerville.
Aye.
This ordinance passes 12-0. Item number 4, we have a substitute offered as an amendment. Resolution, this is offered by President Somerville, Councilman Fusco, Councilwoman Baylor, Councilman Lombardo, Councilman McKittrick, Councilman Kamer, Councilman Freeman, and Councilwoman Connor. Resolution urging the state of Ohio to place the issue of the death penalty on the ballot of the next general election so that the voters may decide whether the death penalty should be prohibited and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Madam President. During the committee today, we did have a favorable report, but I must poll my committee for suspension of the rules for this amendment change.
Any objections on suspension of the rules? Seeing and hearing none, rules are suspended. You can proceed with polling your committee, Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Madam President. Samples?
Nay.
Malik?
Just to be clear, this is not voting on the actual, we'll vote on the actual piece subsequent to suspending the rules, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
Aye.
Okay, I'll
Thank you.
vote with Mr. Kamer.
Okay, McKittrick
Aye.
and myself, aye. With that, the committee's report is favorable.
Thank you so much. Councilman Fusco?
Yes, thank you. I think with this piece of legislation or resolution, I should say, thank you, is that I'm not saying that that those on death row ought to be executed. they should be or they shouldn't be. I don't believe within this resolution we're basically saying that. I think what we're saying is that the voters ought to decide. It ought to be up to the voters, and it's bigger than just those that are in the State House. With all respect to those in the General Assembly, that this ought to go. This is a pretty big issue that affects everyone in one way or another, and that those issues that was brought forward in reference to the inequities that exist on death row ought to be debated, discussed in the public domain. And so with that, I would urge and respectfully request that those on City Council support this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Fusco. Councilman Neal?
Yes, ma'am. Can someone please state what's been changed in this substitute? I noticed it came across around 3 or 4. I just noticed it, so I'm not sure what the change is.
Yes, Councilman Neal, we can. I actually had asked if the sponsor would be willing to urge for a conversation to look at what we've been talking about, some of those racial biases and inequities. So we're going to actually have the clerk to read in the substitute, the added piece.
Sure. There's an additional whereas clause that says, whereas council urges voters to educate themselves and to engage in conversations about the unjust application of the death penalty as it relates to race.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman Neal.
That concerns me, that we're going to ask our constituents to educate themselves. I mean, we as council haven't educated ourselves. Brought legislation in for us to have racial equity training. We've known about the problem of structural and institutional racism for going on 4 years now. Have brought in legislation for us to have training, and this council voted it down. Again, if I was to ask members on this council, what is equity, I would get different answers. So for us to ask our constituents to do something that we're not, well, I'm not going to say we're not, that someone in this council are not even willing to do. Let's not gaslight our constituents. This right here is what concerns me about us. It's placating. I mean, let's really do the work of the people. This body has not engaged in any kind of racial equity training, period. And now we're going to ask our constituents to do it. This is what gives me concern with this piece of legislation. If members feel that the death penalty should stay, just say that. But the play on race, and to play on race, when this body has voted down racial equity training, no. I mean, if I'm wrong, if this body has not voted down racial equity training, please correct me, but have been talking about it for years, and we have not taken one step as a collective body to educate ourselves so that when we use these words in policy, that we're actually using them the right way. And to play the race card this way, when it really counts to someone losing their life, man.
Councilwoman Samples?
I too echo the sentiments of my colleague. I think that first, I wish that, and I won't say all, but I wish that council members would have taken the time to actually speak with the representatives from Columbus, actually read the proposal that has been put forth as they discussed the inequities that have taken place as it relates to the death penalty, especially amongst African Americans. I don't think we would have had to put such a frivolous clause in a resolution. It's embarrassing. It's disappointing. As a Black woman, I am very concerned that we put a one-liner in the place of the inequities that go on in this country to Black people and especially Black men. And we put it in a one-liner as if it's just a fly-by-night statement. This is something that's been going on for too long. Whether we step up and do something about it, I do believe something will be done about it. I just wish that we would be honest with ourselves. And if you support it, say you support it. Don't hide behind a resolution. If you support the death penalty as a Democrat in a red state, just say that. And hide behind voters to do the work for us. And make this state pay millions of dollars to make them do the work that we should be doing, that we should be educating ourselves with and not putting the onus on them. It's very disappointing.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Samples. Again, I want to thank you for bringing this before council so that we can even have this conversation. It is no secret. I think there are definitely issues that must be addressed and must be talked about, and they have to start with a conversation as it relates to racial biases and inequities. But my issue is with this piece, there is a voice that is missing. A voice that I hear and talk with far too often as a funeral director, and that is the voices of victims' families. I have sat with far too many of them, helping them in that final moment to make arrangements for their loved ones who have lost their lives to some absolutely horrific crimes that we could not imagine. And so for me, I support this piece because it allows them to have a voice, but not just them, for any and everyone to have a voice on such an important and personal issue to all. So those are my comments. I don't know if there's any other council members that have a comment at this moment in time before we take the vote. Seeing and hearing none, the rules have been suspended. The committee's report is favorable. Roll call.
Baylor,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Freeman,
Aye.
Fusco,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Malik,
Nay.
Neal,
Nay.
Amobian,
Aye.
Samples,
Nay.
Somerville.
Aye.
The motion passes 9-3. Item number 5, offered by Neal. Ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts with Tom Todd Ideas Incorporated for a partnership with the City of Akron in the Creative Akron Summer Program for 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Councilman Neal,
Yes, ma'am. The committee's request is consent agenda.
this item will be placed on the consent agenda. That concludes our new business for this evening. We'll now go to the portion of our meeting that we refer to as our public comment period. Our clerk will play in comments received for this evening.
John Wesley Sharp, attorney and counselor at law. 730 Callis Drive, apartment 1201, Akron, Ohio 44301. Phone number 330-773-4586. According to the Beacon Journal article of October 2018, Akron ranked one of the worst cities in America for denying blacks economic development. The mayor's, Dan Horrigan's, the mayor's chief of staff said, quote, "Our black population is just completely cut out from growth and opportunity in this current economy." And I use those words intentionally. They are excluded from economic opportunity. This is not about participating. They're economy. The chair of the Economy Division of City Council is that large Councilman J.F. We are asking for, pleading for, and demanding Black opportunity growth. We want economic growth for Black people in Akron. Money, economic growth, cash, checks. You're talking to the Task Force Committee on Economic Growth. All right, remember, racism is to the bone, to the marrow of the bone. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. On this great sunshiny day, I'm Bill, B-I-L-L, Nesbitt, N-E-S-B-I-T-T, at our 330-379-2235. Let's add to the sunshine like getting a drop-off box back at our original Akron Bureau of Public Utilities High Street location and look forward to getting our bureau reestablished there. And then our building, we owe it to our city people to have that fixture in our city, and we build up from there. Thank you for your attention. All have a great 2019-2021 winter, spring, Lenten season years.
Yes, my question is, would the city council ever look into buying equipment that they could do the streets, not only the streets, but the sidewalks of all the properties of around the city? I don't know if this is feasible at all or what the price is, but would that be something that council would look into? My name is Sylvia, Sylviaghghe. My address is 1028 Murray Avenue, Akron, Ohio 4431. My number is 330-861-3829. Thank you for your time. Bye.
Hello, I live on Betty Street in Ward 5. I'm calling to register a complaint about this business at 705 Johnston Street. I think the fire trucks have been called about 5 times because he burns, I don't know, I think treated lumber, or anyway, you can smell chemicals and it goes all over the neighborhood. And those people that have respiratory problems are having a hard time. You can't even open your window for some fresh air because it permeates your house. Anyway, thank you. Bye.
Good evening. This is Jody Grassgreen, 699 Weber Avenue. We urge the City of Akron to accept a conservation project for Tice Wood. Another development above the river and adjacent to Mudbrook will further degrade the floodplain and wetlands of the area. I am from Preserve the Valley, and we have comments from other Akron residents that have posted on an online petition at Preserve the Valley that now numbers 15,443. I won't read all of them to you, but I am going to read you some from the Akron residents. Caitlin says, we do not need another housing development. We need our green space and affordable housing. Heather, why destroy green space and habitats when Akron already has so much neglected developed space? Andrew, green space provides inherent value that should be protected. Akron doesn't need more greenfield housing. Mary says, don't forget, this is our recreation area. Dense housing invites traffic and commercial development. This should be a no. Melanie, we've destroyed too many natural lands for high-priced homes the majority of residents can't afford. Nathan, city sprawl is taking over. Humans and animals alike will suffer from the loss of nature. Margaret, because we don't need more McMansions, we need healthy forests. Thomas, developers should be reclaiming the many already developed areas of Akron that are sitting vacant and stop destroying nature and the very few remaining green spaces we have left in the city. Andy, as a member of the Merriman Valley business community, I do not want to see more flooding in our already vulnerable valley. Plus, we need to stop clearing forests in what is supposed to be the city in the park, especially this area, Akron's gateway to the national park. Sarah, for the well-being of Akron residents, for the ecosystem on this land, for the surrounding environment that is impacted, save this green space. Thank you for your time this evening. Be well and be.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Huth. I'm at 962 West Market Street. This is the second message I have left in reference to the issue of a breaking and entering at Champlain Cleaners on Portage Path, and the response by law enforcement to issue a ticket for a felony crime rather than arrest the criminals. And I have asked Mr. Brown. I've received no response. I think I left this previous message 2 or 3 weeks ago. I know it was played in front of council. I've not received anything. Response to my email, my voicemail. I've also sent a response to Mr. Brown, and every time I get Mr. Brown either calls me and says that I need to talk to Mr. Knoll. My question is quite simple. Who made these decisions and what were the basis of these decisions? I would like a written response to these questions. They're very simple. I'm not asking for anyone to do anything. I'm simply asking for the basis for this decision and who made this decision. And the decision is, as I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that somebody committing a felony crime, like breaking and entering, now is not arrested. Please, again, I do not want to defer to somebody else. I would like a written response. I've emailed Mr. Brown on 3 or 4 occasions to ask this question, and again, still to receive a response from him or from City Council based on my prior inquiry. Thank you.
Hi, this is Nick calling from Akron, 41 Marshall Avenue. Good evening, council members. I, of course, want to remind you all that I vehemently oppose new developments in the valley and attempts to frack on our watershed. I'm still waiting for council members and the mayor to release public statements on the campaign finance tied to DP Energy Auburn. More importantly tonight, though, I would like to bring a very pressing and unsettling issue to your attention. Serve the People Akron is a mutual aid collective that stands in solidarity with the unhoused populations of Akron. For close to a year now, we have conducted regular serves at Grace Park, where we provide food and supplies to folks on the streets. We do our best to be good neighbors and to lend a hand to those most in need. So we find it quite disgusting that the Akron Police Department, by whoever's order, has decided to harass and police us regularly. Just yesterday, while we were making supply drops at area encampments, we saw an APD cruiser, number 11, slowly drive by our vehicles, stop, and then take off. This was about 20 minutes after having seen Mayor Horgan bike past us on the towpath trail. Presumably, as the mayor, he was also on his way to help the less fortunate, but I have no proof of that being the case. Several times while serving at Grace Park, we have also witnessed both irregular police cruisers and unmarked cars drive past our parked vehicles in what we believe is an intimidation and harassment tactic. Further, we have good reason to believe that undercover cops and informants have attempted to blend into the houseless crowds to surveil us. These undercovers have been spotted doing laps in the park and have attempted to offer our members marijuana in a clear attempt to entrap individuals, which is also illegal and a violation of police conduct. We find it disgusting that the APD had a budget of $71 million in 2020, and rather than use that money to help those in need, they instead decide to police and surveil citizens who are merely feeding the houseless. Additionally, the CSX eviction of our heartless friends near the tracks at Grace Park is still a troubling issue. We have not been able to track down most of those folks who were displaced during the coldest period of this season, including elderly folks with disabilities who have not been taken into area shelters. Ostensibly, the CSX cleared these camps because of recent injuries and deaths on the railroad. But according to the Akron Beacon Journal, these deaths and injuries took place in 2019 on other parts of the tracks. I hope you take time to consider these troubling events and investigate these matters further. Thank you.
Good evening, Akron City Council members. My name is Shelley Pearsall. My address is 1660 Smoke Rise Drive in Akron. I'm a member of Preserve the Valley Citizen Action Group. Back in October, we created a petition on change.org calling on people to voice their support for saving the Tice Road property. That petition has now been signed by 15,600 people, many of them from Akron. And I'd like to read some of the Akron comments to council tonight. Tammy from Akron wrote, "This is a beautiful resource that should not be developed. Less homes, more trees." Kathy from Akron wrote, "We need to preserve our green spaces and protect the environment." Kelly from Northampton wrote, "I'm signing because that water runoff is going to flood my backyard creek and my front yard. And more importantly, Northampton doesn't need this development, nor does Mother Nature." Martha from Akron wrote, "Please protect the area from development." Ashley wrote, "I lived in Akron for 3 years. The quantity, quality, and ease of access to green spaces is one of the best elements of living in Akron. The city should preserve and celebrate this, not destroy it." Jessica from Akron wrote, "Why on earth are more houses needed right here? Green space is our most valuable resource." Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan Keene. I have lived in Ward 10 in the Goodyear Heights neighborhood for the last 11 years and was born in Akron. I'm a member of About Face Veterans Against the War and a member of Serve the People Akron. I wanted to leave a voicemail raising some questions to City Council regarding the CSX illegal encampment sweep of the houseless community behind Grace Park on February 17th. CSX says that on February 10th, they notified the city of Akron and the Akron Police Department. Why weren't any members of City Council notified? Why weren't the houseless folks notified at the encampment? Why wasn't anything posted? Why did the city try to preemptively go down and talk to the tent city and let them know that CSX was coming on February 17th? Why does the mayor lend support to CSX, according to CSX, but not tell City Council or the houseless citizens behind Grace Park about the illegal encampment sweep? Also, there is nowhere marked or posted at Grace Park, a City of Akron public park, where the property ends and where CSX property begins. How far off the train tracks is CSX property before City of Akron property starts? So I think having that marked and posted would be a good step. Also, there's many committees and task force as there are for the city of Akron, mostly related around business and gentrification projects. I think it would be pertinent to have a committee for houseless folks with a couple members of city council on it, but also some civilian activists for the houseless that have been involved with the houseless, as well as some members of the houseless community themselves. The 3 deaths that were noted as a safety reason happened over 2 years ago, and one was a suicide. None of the 3 were anywhere near the Grace Park encampment, like the mayor claims. All 3 happened within 2 months in spring 2019, from April to June. From the city of Akron has requirements of either sobriety or religious. The Haven Arrest has religious requirements. There should be a low to no requirement programming for housing in the city of Akron.
evening, City Council members. It's Carol Coleman Crane with Team Towing and Service. I want to thank you all for all the good, positive communication that I've been listening to at your meetings. I also wanted to address the legislation that was submitted last week, just asking about the amount of tow trucks, at least 5, 2 front-wheel drive, 2 trucks have flatbeds, 25-ton. I just wanted to let you know I have 14 flatbeds, all relatively new, all equipped with the proper amber lights, the rear view mirrors, the booms, the dollies on my 4 wreckers with the dollies. We have brooms and shovels and extinguishers. Each driver has their own lockout kit, professionally purchased lockout kits. Each driver also has their own jump box. Our drivers have lit up uniforms that are also laundered every week. We have, going down the list, our drivers are equipped with everything. Each driver has their own set of tools, reflectors, communication devices. We have radios inside each truck. We have tracking devices in each truck, all the straps, first aid kits, everything. We're equipped with everything. We have the 2 heavies, 25-ton, 16-ton. Everything that you're asking for, we have and have had for several years now. So I'm very encouraged by that with the conversation that you all have had. I would like to personally thank Tara Mosley Samples of Ward 5 for not giving up on this and for digging in, and really just for many of you for just really learning and educating yourselves on the towing districts. And I also want to thank Doug Livingston of the Akron Beacon Journal on a really good, positive article last week. I got a lot of positive feedback on that. And I'm hopeful for to eventually be included in these districts for the towing for Akron Police Department, City of Akron. Currently, as I have mentioned, we're towing for Ohio Highway Patrol and the U.S. Postal Service, as well as contracting with AAA. And I would love to add APD to our list of contracts. I'd love to be able to do this for the City of Akron. Thank you all again.
That concludes our public comments for this evening. Just a reminder, we do forward all of our public comments to the appropriate council person and department. Just want to make sure that council members are checking for those messages just so that we can follow up on those comments and address concerns. We'll now go into our committee assignments, rules. Councilman Freeman.
2:30.
Public Safety, Councilman Kamer.
2:15.
Budget and Finance, Councilman Freeman.
3 p.m. and a reminder to everyone that operating budget hearings begin tomorrow at 3.
Parks and Rec, Councilman Neal.
1:45.
Planning and Economic Development, Councilman Fusco.
1.
Housing and Neighborhood Assistance, Councilman Fusco.
Subject to call.
Public Service, Councilwoman Samples.
2 p.m.
Health and Social Services, Councilwoman Amobian.
2:30.
Public Utilities and Green Committee, Councilman Freeman.
2:45.
Thank you. Is there anything else coming before council? I do see Councilwoman Samples' hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few things. I first want to address the caller who called in that I've been in touch with the residents of Betty Street. I've also spoken with Chief Tucker about this as well. They have sent fire units out there January, February, and March, and ABC Material seems to continue to burn whatever kind of lumber they're burning over there. I've actually went into the neighborhood when the smoke was very dense, and as someone who is asthmatic, I could understand their concerns and their breathing issues with the smoke that is being thrown out from these fires. I don't know if they're being fined or not. I don't know if that's something that Chief Tucker can find out for me. I don't know if they're being fined, because it seems like as soon as fire leaves, they're burning this lumber again, and it's continuous. So I don't know what the fine is, but it seems to not be effective because they're continuing the same practices that they've been doing. So I'll reach out to you tomorrow, Chief Tucker, so we can take a deeper look into see if they're being fined or not, because it seems like even when you guys show up, they just continue to do what they do after you leave. So if we could look into that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Also, we are in the process of doing a full inspection at that property tomorrow.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And secondly, the message from Mr. Keene as to what happened down at the CSX Railroad behind Grace Park. Until it was mentioned a few weeks ago on council, I knew nothing about it. Didn't get an email about it. We usually get emails when there's some kind of violation going on in our ward or something happens, but this is very concerning and disturbing to me when we are in the middle of a pandemic, that we're overturning houseless communities where people have nowhere to go. So I don't know who would handle this. I don't know if you, Francie, is handling this now that John is gone, or if I should talk to another department, but I'd like to get some clarity on who made the call. It seems like everyone's pointing the finger, but now we have a lot of veterans who've lost a lot of their memorabilia because of whatever happened down there with them using, I guess, some kind of bobcat to turn over all of their things into dirt. So if we could look into that and find out what department would handle it, I'd appreciate that. And then lastly, I'm sure many of you have heard over the weekend that Josh Sines passed away. And although he may have been on the other side of the political spectrum for us, he was a friend to many of us. He was a good friend of mine. He was a great person, small business owner, and his untimely death is definitely being felt. So please say a prayer for his family.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Samples, for mentioning Mr. Sines. Thank you. Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to reiterate the importance of our conversation. And I want to reach out to my colleagues who brought in this substitute that I noticed at 5:55. It says, whereas council urges voters to educate themselves and to engage in conversation about unjust application of death penalty in relation to race. If this is out of sincerity, I ask my colleagues on council that brought in this legislation, we're in the midst of our budget process. Last time when it was brought in that we educate ourselves, set aside money to properly educate ourselves about structural and institutional racism, and that can't be done with one conversation. That is there is much study and research behind that. I encourage that during this budget process, we set aside as council money to educate ourselves. Because I mean, I heard you, Madam President, when you talked about as a funeral director. But the reality of it is, if we understand the impact of structural and institutional racism, it leads to a lot of causes that lead these people to create crimes because of the environments that it created. Now, there are people who commit crimes and they rightfully do need to be incarcerated. But because of the many, all the historical documentation of how unjust our judicial process is and how many people have already been wrongfully killed who are innocent. Again, I reach out to members on council if you're serious, because many who signed this, I believe every one of you voted down us educating ourselves as a council to learn about what structural and institutional racism is so that we can properly apply legislation and not compound problems by creating more inequitable policy. So, tomorrow we start the budget process. We have not met in a year and a half to even discuss our budget. This is one item that should be on it, just based on the words that are in this legislation. So I look forward to us having this discussion and setting aside money so that we can educate ourselves and lead in an area that we're asking our, not just our constituents, but the rest of the residents throughout the state of Ohio to do. So, and that is to understand how inequities lead to racial disparities.
Thank you so much, Councilman Neal. Is there anything else coming before council at this time? Councilman Fusco?
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. If there are no objections, meeting adjourned.
This concludes the live broadcast of Akron City Council. Margot Somerville, President of Council, presiding.